So I want to talk tonight about positive and defending aids. And I have a whole PDF that I can put up about the actual aids and the writing part of it. And we probably will get to that tonight. But I want to talk in the beginning about just the mindset aspects of it. And what I want to, while I kind of talking about this, I would like you guys to think about something that you do in your writing that you really have a lot of confidence that you approach that in a positive way. And then I want you also to consider another aspect. What would be something where you feel that you're defending in some aspect, whether it's in whatever aspect you you see, and any part of your writing, how you approach it. So during the webinar, you can either speak up if it's something that we're getting to, that we're talking about right at that moment, that you know that's something that you feel is happening to you in a good way or in a way that you'd like to get better at. And just looking if Meg got hers, because I don't see her here yet. So both sides, I'm going to ask you a positive, something that you know and you feel really confident about in your writing, a way that you approach it in a positive, and then something that you might be more in a defending way. And then we'll get into, the actual writing, but here we're going to talk about the mindset. And I think we can apply these things to, to life a little bit too. So that's kind of fun. So writing in a positive way, mindset. My horse is trying to figure out what I want him or her to do. So if we come every day to our lessons with our horses and we have that primary belief that whatever I'm doing, I believe that my horse is trying to figure it out, I think that starts the lesson off. Oh, there's Meg. Hey, good to see you. I think that starts the lesson off in a really positive way. It creates this feeling of wanting to explain things better. There's Andrea. Hello.
Hi. Bye.
Good to see you.
In my
All right.
towel.
Uh-oh. So for Meg and for Andrea, I'm going to repeat my request. We're talking about positive and defending aids. The beginning is going to be about mindset. Then we're going to move into, we'll go over the aids like we did a couple months ago. We're going to review that. But what I would like is if there's something that you know in your writing that you have a very positive mindset about, or and you're very confident about something, I'm going to ask you later to please share that. Or if it's on this list and you want to say it right at the moment, then feel free to check in and say that, I really feel good about how I approach that. And maybe even how you do it would be fun to hear. So my horse is trying to figure out what I want him or her to do. When we approach the lessons that way, then right away our mind is trying to figure out how to say things better. Because if you're thinking that your horse is trying not to do what you want, then you're going to get stronger in your aids. You're just going to keep saying the same thing over and over again, just louder. But if your horse is really trying to figure it out and is making mistakes, but you believe that it's trying to figure it out, then something about that concept is creating this inquiry in you, this curiosity in you. How can I explain it better? Am I using my body the way that my mind is trying to? So, we're applying our aids. We're trying to apply our aids where we know we want something. Would we maybe think, could I do that a little bit better? Am I really utilizing my leg the way I need to? Am I applying that half halt in the appropriate moment? Or could I possibly do it better? Or is there an exercise that would help explain it better? So coming from the beginning into the lesson, my horse is trying to figure out what I want him or her to do, I think really sets the tone for a positive lesson. Another thing that I didn't write down here is that my trainer believes that I can do what she's asking or what he's asking. I think that's another positive mindset to have when you're taking lessons, because if you've got a little block and you're like, I'm not really sure if I can do that or that that's going to work, but really deep on the inside, and you trust your trainer that they believe that you can do what they're asking of you, you're going to just in a relaxed way keep going on that way. But if you don't have that belief or you don't even think about it, then maybe you're going to shut yourself down when your trainer asks you to do something difficult. So that's just a little aside. So the second one is look on the line or the path of travel and ride with purpose on that line. So riding in a positive way, we want to really look up and look out and then ride from our seat on that line. And it's very easy for riders to look down and get kind of caught up in that loop of the neck and the bending. Is the neck in the right place? And those kind of things, and not actually project forward on the path of travel. And if you're not projecting forward, then your horse is going to have less confidence. So you want to think about that. A lot of times it's talked about in jumping, right? Where you're really looking, you might have to count strides, you're looking over the fence. But in dressage, we don't talk about that as much. And I think it's even more important, because when you're jumping, your horse is looking at that fence, knows you're pointing toward that fence, and your horse is taking you to that fence, hopefully. And in dressage, the horses don't know what we're doing next. Are we going to do a diagonal? Are we going to do a circle? Are we going to do a half pass? They don't know. So we need to be even more positive when we're riding around that rectangle than we are if we're out on a trail ride or, jumping a couple fences. So look on the line and then ride with purpose on that line. What does that mean? That means that your center is going to ride on that line. Your legs are going to help you go on that line, as well as your reins. So if you are thinking about that positive line and your horse starts to veer a little bit that way, your leg is going to bring it back. If it starts to veer a little bit that way, your leg is going to bring it back. So you're always looking and projecting yourself in a positive way forward. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me okay? Is it Is everybody having a hard time with audio? Okay. All right. Maybe it's your, can you put up your volume, Chris? Or check, maybe your Wi-Fi isn't stable. Sometimes mine's not, but today it actually doesn't look too bad. Maybe maybe your volume needs to be up a little higher. I can see, let me see if I can get my my headset. Hang on one second. I don't know if this will make it any better or worse. Can you hear me now? Or did I make it worse? It's better? Can you guys hear me too? Everybody can hear me now? I'm not underwater anymore? Okay. All right, great. Okay. So, look on the line and ride with purpose on that line. So that's going to be being more positive. Know what you want before you apply the aid. So think about that. If you have an idea of what your horse is going to do, what you want him to do, and then an intention when you give the aid, you will know quicker if your horse actually does what you want and be able to reward quicker. Okay? So what do I want before I apply the aid? And that seems like, of course, a really simple thing, but a lot of times we don't really think things through. We don't set that intention. We can be a little bit hesitant or just a little fuzzy in what we want. And when we really have that clear idea in our mind, what size trot, what kind of energy, if we're making a shoulder in, how much angle do we want? If we're going to make an aid that we want the horse to go forward, how do we want it to go forward? Which leg, both legs? What's it going to feel like? Am I making an extension, or I just want more energy? So know what you want before you apply the aid. This is really quite nice to practice when you're doing the groundwork. When you're doing the groundwork, you can have that visual of the horse giving in, and you can have that direct result. And that can be really nice to then carry over into your riding. And a lot of times when we do the groundwork before we get on, we can also get a little bit of an assessment. How does our horse feel before we get on? And that will help clear out some of that negative thinking about, that's my fault, or, this isn't working. If you know how your horse's body feels before you get on, then you're going to have a better idea how to warm up and how to approach things. And that if they're a little sticky here or there, or a little stiffer in one rein or the other, you already knew that. You worked it out a little bit in the groundwork, but the horse presented that way on the ground. When you get on, you're going to be more thoughtful how you work through it, but you're not going to be getting down on yourself, for instance. Know what you want before you apply the aid. Look for the answer to the aid. So riding in a positive way means that you are expecting the horse to do the right thing when you ask. So that means that your body language is open when you're giving the aid for that thing to happen. So if you're looking for it to happen, then you're riding in a positive way. If you have a little bit of negative thinking going on, you're making the aid, but you're coming from the belief that the horse might not do it or isn't going to do it. That's going to shut that door, and most likely you aren't going to get what you want. So you're going to be actively looking for the answer to the aid that you're giving when you give it. Try to keep yourself from nagging. So when you're riding in a positive way, you're asking questions of your horse that you know that they can give you the answer to, and you're asking in a way that they can understand, and you don't need to nag. So this is just summing up. Know what you want before you ask and look for the answer. And if they don't give you the answer, then you're going to ask again, but a little bit louder, okay? But you're going to try to keep yourself from nagging. On the other side, you're going to say what you need to say. So we have a little motto. We say that you want to use aids as much as necessary, but as little as possible. So the horse has to hear you, but you want to be able, through your quiet riding, to be as subtle as possible. But if the horse doesn't hear you, then you need to get a little bit louder. So keep yourself from nagging, but say what you need to say. Get to the praise as soon as possible. That's how you're going to get the horse working for you, wanting to connect with you. Okay? So if you ask little and praise often, your horse is just going to get more and more excited about answering the questions correctly. If you ask a lot and then you're never telling them when they're giving you the right answer, then your horse is going to shut down possibly or put in less effort. Sorry, my throat is so dry today. So get to the praise as soon as possible. And for me, what I like to do is just get maybe a partial yes in the beginning of the ride and reward, and then build on that yes and make it bigger as I get more warmed up. Okay? So you're good. You're there's certain feelings that the horse gives you that they are thinking about what you want to do and they are trying to put themselves in the right shape, but maybe they're not warmed up enough yet, or you don't get the 100% of the body giving in, but you feel that they're on your page. Praise them for that, especially if it's in the beginning of the ride. I think that it's absolutely going to make your ride better and better when you come with that idea. So get to the praise as soon as possible. When the horses are working with you mentally as well as physically, it changes everything. And you'll find that they approach the lessons more and more positive. But you need to don't praise them when they're putting a block in And don't give up if you're feeling a block. It's always a yes, not a no. Don't change the subject. That's not what we're talking about. They need, whatever it is, if you're using your leg, you want them to go forward, you need to get that inclination that they're going to go, and then the reward. Don't readjust or change or try to find a different way. That's not what we're talking about. But get to the praise as soon as possible. Ask the question, get that yes, phrase them as soon as possible, especially if it's a sticky subject. You want to get their mind on board and connected with you. Keep connection with your horse. If you lose the rein, the seat, or the leg consistency, you can replace it with your voice and, if possible, your body language. So it's, sometimes we make mistakes in the riding, or we don't relax the aid quick enough, even though the horse is trying to do what we want. We're all trying to build skills and get better and better every day. Your voice can override the riding mistakes. And thank goodness. So if you feel like you're working on something new, or you're a little bit uncoordinated at certain aids. So for instance, a big place where this can come into play is with flying changes. Because when you're teaching a new horse flying changes, sometimes they are not doing them super fluently. They may be, jumping through the air a little bit, kicking at your leg a little bit. Can be that they are, unseating you or pushing your legs a little bit off. So when they make a big effort and they are trying to make that flying change, and you feel like you lose your balance a little bit, or you lose your seat a little bit, I always really try to come quickly with the voice to appreciate them trying, even if I'm getting a little bit out of balance and not saying with my body exactly the right thing. So there are other times, of course, where maybe you're trying some canter half pass for the first time, or even counter canter, and you feel like you lose a little bit of your balance. But the horse doesn't break and it doesn't rush, and it, stays on that counter canter lead through the short side or through the movement. And you can really come quickly with the voice so that they know, hey, that was the right thing she wanted me to do. And then they're going to make more effort for that next time. So you want to keep the connection with the horse, the mental connection, and that beside when you lose the connection of your reins, you lose possibly that good seat, lose possibly that good feeling with your leg. You can maintain the connection, that emotional, mental connection, by replacing it with the seat. With the voice, sorry. So just think about that. It doesn't have to be crazy and loud. It can be very subtle. You can have a very nice rapport with the horse, especially if you're like at a horse show or something like that. You don't need to be, yelling across the whole ring, but the horses will, of course, they have keen ears, so they'll be able to hear you even when you're speaking nicely and quietly to them. Be careful not to put too many restrictions on the answer. So when you're riding in a positive way, in the beginning, your warm-up is for installing the software, we say, reminding them about the aids, and then also loosening up and getting them, elasticized and supple for the ride. Especially in the beginning, you don't want to say that, for instance, you want to go forward, but only if it's exactly like this. Or you want them to accept the bridle, but it has to be exactly like this. Make sure in the warm-up that you're stretching and you're asking them to go forward and you're letting. They have to accept your aids, okay? So it's not about not asking them to accept the aids, but it's also not saying you have to go forward and this has to be exactly like that, that has to be exactly like that, that has to be exactly like that. And then, especially in the warm-up, your horse is going to have a hard time with that. When we are putting movements together, a lot of it is the mental understanding of those aids put together that create that movement. So for instance, if I'm asking for a shoulder in, I'm going to create pressure to make the shoulder in. And as the horse gets into the proper shape of shoulder in, I'm going to relax the pressure. Through my warm-up, I've already had a conversation about what my right leg means, what my left leg means, what my right rein means, what my left rein means, how to make smaller steps and bigger steps, how to stay supple and from my inside leg to my outside rein, right? So at that time, my horse is already creating a little bit of that shape and mentally is participating in the shoulder in, okay? I want to do my warm-up in a way that if I ask the horse to go forward, it's okay to go a little extra forward, to make bigger steps, to get a little bit excited. When I want to make the smaller steps again, of course, it needs to listen to the half halts, listen to the reins, listen to the suppling aids. Okay? But I really don't want to build walls everywhere and say, you can go forward, but it has to be exactly straight. It has to be exactly on the bit. It has to be exactly with your neck in this place. It has to be in this exact tempo. The warm-up is developing. So you want to be careful. Riding in a positive way also means having a bit of creativity and allowing your horse to have a little bit of expression sometimes. So if you have a horse that has a particularly difficult a bit, maybe doesn't want to go right away forward into the canter, it's a little sticky on the leg. Sometime I put too many restrictions and things popped out the wrong way, Crystal. Yes, thank you. I wish we had a picture. So yeah, but this is exactly right. You want to develop you want to develop that. Yeah, sometime, right? But so Crystal is talking about Brooke when I was riding yesterday. And I put some, I developed what I thought was understanding between the aids. And when I brought it all together to say, okay, like now let's make the half halt, I pushed the wrong button and we had a little buck and a jump. So Brooke was definitely expressing herself. And maybe we would like it not to be quite as exciting. However, we did not punish her for that. And we directed the energy, little by little into the right place. And I opened a couple of other doors so that she had what, you know, she thought more as a better way out. But I think it has to be within reason, this expression. But sometimes if I want my horse to go from the walk to the trot and I feel it gets a little sticky or a little bumpy, you know, I might let it just bump, bump, jig along. It's okay. Stay open, you know, not, yes, she really did. It was a great lesson today. And so I don't go after, you know, sometimes if they're really being naughty and dangerous, you have to go after them and say that's not allowed. So I'm not saying let them be crazy with their expression, but also we don't want to be restricting them in a way that you're blocking everything. And you have to think about the priority of what you're asking for. And if they don't get it, so you have to open a door somewhere to let that energy flow and then start to make it a little bit more clear. And in dressage, I think that this is a place where people do get confused. So be careful not to put too many restrictions on what answer you want from your horse. And if you feel like you're really getting stuck and they're getting very tense and they're not able to find their way, you're going to go back to that training pyramid. And we always remember that we have to have that base of relaxation and rhythm. So if you're losing the rhythm, then you know that you're putting too many restrictions and the horse is not moving freely through its body, whether it's the walk, the trot, or the canter. The walk, the 4 beats, the trot, the 2 beats, the canter, the 3 beats. If you're putting too many restrictions and the horse is becoming very tense, we got to go back to that training pyramid, lay down the groundwork for the relaxation and the rhythm, and then start going up from there again. I hope that makes sense. It's an important point. And I think in jumping and things like this, you know, the doors are open. That you needed your answers, but the doors are open more. And in dressage, the doors need to be open. But when you're watching, a lot of times it doesn't look like they're open. So then when you try to do that in your riding, you'll feel restrictions and stuckness. So there's a suppleness and an understanding of what the horse's body has to do in order to accommodate your aids. In order for a horse to start being collected, it needs to understand to stand more upright. In order to stand more upright, it needs to accept the reins and the legs through the body. And so we need to teach that step by step. And in the warming up every day, we have to remind the horses. We can't just go take it for granted and think that we can start off where we finished yesterday. And that, I think that's the biggest thing that would make you put too many restrictions, would be thinking that you can start off where you finished yesterday. All right. Riding in a positive way. Be in the present. Although it is necessary to honor the present strength and level of understanding of your horse, it's better to be present in how your horse presents and reacts today rather than think about the past. So it's really a life lesson not to go to things that we are experiencing today with the memories of yesterday, last week, last month, last year. This is a practice. We need to work on it in all aspects of our lives. Be in the present and be there with your horse. Your horse is present with you today. And although we're training them and they do, retain a certain amount of information, really they're present with our energy and our aids at the time we're giving them. They're not really remembering a lot about the past. A lot of that is us bringing that to the lesson. So the less we can do that, the more the clear the slate, and I think the better connection that we have with our horses on a day-to-day. So as best you can, and I think that that's a practice that we all need to do in everything and every day. And the more we practice it in the other aspects of our life, the easier it is going to be to get a handle on it when we're riding. Appreciation, not expectation. So again, a good one for life, but really appreciating every day the opportunity to work with our horses, that opportunity that they give us to try to do what we want them to do and to work with us every day, and not expectation. Sometimes the horses are going to come out and exceed all expectations, but when you go out with a certain bar and your horse is distracted or not feeling well or came out stiff today, and then we go down into that rabbit hole of thinking about the past, not being curious, the ride is not going to go well. It's not going to go well. So if I try to reset my mind if I start feeling that things aren't going well and I had expected to be working on certain movements that day, or I had expected for my horse to come out in a certain way because of how she went yesterday. I've got to shift my mindset to appreciation and then come back up and get that training going again. And this we have to do in every, like just having the opportunity to be working with the horses is so special, and for them to let us do the stuff we do with them. So we have to start off every day with that appreciation. And I think that will create more positive aids and more positive mindset in your riding. Visualize your best self riding, and take a minute to do that before you are working with your horses every day. All that being said, think about that in every relationship that you have. Visualize your best self in that connection. So what does it look like? What are my intentions for the day? What are my goals for the day? What are my values that I want to uphold on that day? And then I'm going to visualize what is the person who, what does it look like? Who is that can actually accomplish those things? So it's very easy to get down on yourself and to rerun in your head the things that you've done incorrectly, the mistakes that you've made, or if you're showing that you had a bad test or you had a mistake in a movement. If you're just schooling at home, not just schooling, if you're schooling at home, you oftentimes we run through our heads mistakes that we make, certain aspects about our riding that we don't like. Is there a posture change that you would like to make, but then you just keep thinking, my leg is always like that, or my my back, I'm always down with my shoulders, or I don't hold my hands right, or something like that. And oftentimes that's the movie that's going around in your head. So I want you to take a minute before you get on and just picture yourself being that best rider that you can think of. What are the aspects of that rider? Is it a mentor, or, you know, somebody that we know from the horse shows, or, you know, somebody famous? Could we visualize ourselves riding with their seat? You know, just trying to get as close to that style of riding as we can. Or is there somebody who has a really nice leg and you really like how that leg is working? And how can I just try to visualize that and ride with that leg? So if you don't see it in your mind's eye, you absolutely will not be creating it. And if you are thinking more about your mistakes or the things, the aspects of your position that you don't really like, those things are going to perpetuate. So every day before you ride, you know, just take a little minute to meditate on what's your best self riding today. And then another tip for coming with more positive is, if you find yourself in a hole, just change the subject. It's so easy to get into some kind of a thing, and then, you know, you want to win at that thing. So the horse isn't giving into my inside leg, or I can't get that shoulder in, or that flying change is a problem. Whatever it is, just, if you spend a couple minutes on it and it's, you know, a thorn in your side, it's not working out, and you can't get your mind wrapped around a better exercise, or curiosity is not setting in, it's not letting you try to think of a different way to approach that same problem, then just change the subject. If you're trotting, go to the canter. If you're cantering, come back to the walk. If you're doing tedious stuff like, you know, walk pirouettes or reinbacks or something like that, go forward, play around a little bit, maybe make some extensions and coming back, and then a little bit of, you know, loosening up counter canter or whatever it is. But just let yourself change the subject. Do not get stuck. The horses are not thinking on purpose, how can I not do that? They really are not, as much as we think they are. They really are not. Maybe their body is a little bit tight, or we're a little bit tight and we're not letting something through. If you can be playful and change the subject, chances are you're going to come back to it and it's going to feel much better. So those are some positive, riding in a positive way, talking about the mindset. So then moving on to defending and the mindset of, you know, I don't want him to. So if your horse is, I don't want him to spook, I don't want him to go against my leg, I don't want him to put his head up. When you have these things in your mind, you will absolutely by accident create it. You know what I forgot? And we're going to come back now. Did anybody have anything, before I get too much into this defending thing, did anybody want to share with us one of these positive mindsets for riding that they feel really confident that they apply, or maybe something you would like to even be better at? Chris already said that get to the praise as soon as possible, I think, was one that was interesting for her. Did anybody else have something that they want to say or type into the chat box that you feel that you really do come every day with that positive mindset for your riding? And you can talk too if you want. Good at appreciating, not expecting, but I want to improve all the others. Okay, that's great. That's a good one, Dana. Say what you need to say without nagging. Is that something that you're working more on, or something that you feel that you're really good at, Lissa?
That's the one that I feel like I'm really good at. The one I really want to work on is visualizing my best self riding, because I really struggle with that sometimes, especially at the beginning.
I love that. I love that. That's great. That's great. So I love it that you can say what you say without nagging. And I love it that you are going to start picturing that. What's your best self riding? And I think that's going to definitely make a big impact. Crystal, I try very hard to remember to reward her when she gets it right. Sometimes I am caught up in what I'm doing and not as good about it. So this is definitely something that we all do. And we actually talked about it today, where it's both things, right? We have to train the horses, and we have to think about helping ourselves get better. But if they don't know what we want, they're not going to be able to do it, and we won't be able to ride correctly. We won't be able to correct those things in our posture or in our aids. So that's good articulation of that, Crystal. When she gets, you feel, and you are really good at praising her. But sometimes you also get caught up in your head about what you're not doing right or what you're trying to do. Chris, I love the idea of not putting too much expectations on your horse. I think I do too much about expecting him to get it right away. So it's developing. The ride is developing. And so you don't, just because your horse comes out in a certain way doesn't mean that you can't be creative and find loosening exercises and training exercises that are going to develop that the middle of your ride, your horse is going to know and physically be able to do what you want. We all think if the horse comes out and it's not feeling good, that's the end of the day, but it's not. So I love this. I love this, Chris. Thank you. And Yvonne, I am also trying to work on rewarding more and praise. Good. And what does it do to your own body when you're praising, right? You loosen up, you start breathing, you're having a little bit more fun with your riding. When you're able to say something is good, it just changes everything. So I love that. I love that. Very good. Very good. Crystal was even praising in counter canter today without making mistakes. Very good. Very good. Anybody else? Who am I missing? I'm missing Payton. Meg. Who else is not contributing? Andrea. Why do who's Crystal 1 and 2? All right. There's Andrea.
So I'm just talking. And then I think that one of the hardest things for me is to be in the present and not remember like crappy things that happened in the past. And the past doesn't even mean like yesterday, but it can be like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest thing. It's to like, that's then, you know, you're always like, you're not riding that horse anymore. You're riding, this is the horse you're riding. So like, trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hard thing for me, but it keeps getting better. So it's so much fun.
Good. Good, good. Lissa says me too. She agrees with you with that. All right. You guys are being great tonight. Thank you for contributing. I noticed that I'm so confident. This is Meg. When doing work from the ground, he clearly responds well to my confidence. I'd like to transfer this to the saddle. 100%, Meg. And I love it that you're really working with the groundwork, and you are going to be transferring it to the saddle. I have no doubt. But I think that really understanding each other in the groundwork and getting a good connection in that groundwork is going to help you feel more relaxed. So one of the things that really became clear to me was how when your horse mentally knows what to do in the groundwork, you don't need to over control it. So if you don't need to over control it in the groundwork, why do we need to over control it when we're riding? We don't. So I think that was a huge shift for me, Meg. And that play it in your head a lot about what does it look like when he responds correctly in the groundwork? This is Dana too, right? What do they look like when they respond correctly? Lissa too has been doing the groundwork and then getting on. So what does that look like? What would that feel like? Can you, while you're doing the groundwork, can you kind of imagine what would that feel like? And then you just have that in your feeling zone, in your feeling tone when you get on. And yeah, it takes a lot of practice, but have that mindset now that you're so confident with the groundwork and you know a lot about what you're doing, let your mind wander to what would that feel like? If I was riding him while he was doing that, what would that feel like? What would it feel like just to be relaxed and let him move his feet like that? What does his back feel like when he's doing that? And that kind of thing. And I think that might help you to transfer it to the riding. Another one for you, Meg, would be, excuse me, not to put too many restrictions on the answer, right? Don't put too many restrictions on the answer. And then sometimes if we let go of that side and just ask for that and praise that, then slowly you can put things together more. So I love all that. Good, guys. I really like it. Thank you for saying all that. All right, now we go quickly, or we can do this next week. But I think we can move. I don't think we actually have to go on. I like talking about the positive more anyway. So defending, I don't want him to. He always does, right? I'm stuck like this again. So like when you're in that defending mindset, are we defending against the horse that's kind of pushing against us? Are we defending against ourselves? Are we already planning that things are going to go wrong because he always does this? Or because I always get stuck like this? Not letting the instructor in. That is how we do it. He's always like that. I can't. Don't ask me to. If I ask him or her to do that, such and such will happen. So these are just things that are a little bit, you're coming with that defending mindset. So you're already preventing yourself from improving or from learning. You're already going to be defensive if you think that people think you're a bad rider. I will look stupid if I can't do such and such. I will look bad if I make a mistake. I don't want people to watch. That's you. Then you're defensive. If you're coming without it, I don't want people to watch, and then they're watching, you're already defensive. Everything you do is going to be from that place in your head instead of that feeling place, that relaxed and deep connected place. My horse spooks when people watch. Of course, what's a really bad defending mindset is that negative self-talk, right? You got this thing going around in your head about, how you always get it wrong, or he always does it like that, or, I'm not good enough to do that, or my legs don't work, or he's not listening to this. So we always have to try to clear that out of our head and get our positive talk going again. And you might actually want to write down some things that you would like in your head and put them in the top of your tack box, or we have some things that we've been taping daily mantras to the door and stuff like that. Just put stuff on your refrigerator, on your phone. But it's very easy to get negative self-talk in your head. And also, a lot of people talk negative all the time. And our mind starts repeating that stuff that we hear. So put some positive things. I have alerts on my phone that just come up periodically during the day, so that when I pick up my phone, there's going to be this alert that says, bring that positive energy, or energy up, things like that. Whatever it is, you can put like an alert on your phone that reminds you to visualize your best self riding, or reminds you to come quicker with the praise. My intention today is to come quicker, praise my horse quicker, to be able to relax, to be able to breathe, to be able to have a little fun while I'm riding. So think about that. Where are some places that you can write some Post-it notes and just change those habits? Only focusing on what's going wrong is a very defensive mindset. When you're only focusing on what's going wrong, you're just going to keep perpetuating it. So if that starts happening, try to pick one thing that's going right, and then just keep building that thing better and better. The negative things will start to fall away, and then more positive things will start to come with you. So for instance, if we're thinking, what's going wrong, my horse is resisting my right rein, and then we only think about the right rein, you're 100% not going to get better. Because why is it resisting the right rein? Can be many, many things. And so if we start working on building rapport, can I go forward? Can I come back? Can I turn? Can I bend? Maybe bending to the left and getting the rapport on the left rein first. Getting that inside left leg working toward the outside rein, toward the right rein, so that the right rein starts to do the right, get the weight coming from the hinds instead of from the fronts. But if we're just on the right rein, then the hind legs are going to start to disappear. The connection is going to start to suffer. You're going to end up with no connection on the left rein. So think about what's working, and then keep building on what's working. Riding the look, not the feeling, is always going to create defending, because you're going to be trying not to let the horse slow down or put the head up or whatever. So that's a very defensive way of riding. Pretending everything is okay when it feels bad. Never do that. Talk to your trainer. Work on it. When everything is, usually that's what I call survival mode. Okay. So how do we get out of survival mode? Is that you just start asking more questions and then praising more often. Okay. Don't pretend everything is okay when it's not. If you're riding by yourself or you're not taking a lesson and people are watching and it doesn't feel good, but you don't want them to know that things aren't great, just start doing exercises that are going to build more rapport with your horse. Right? No. Ride the feeling, build rapport, ask questions, get good answers. If you get bad answers, be curious about how to create exercises that are going to get better answers. And we can tell when the half halts aren't going through, Crystal, so don't you worry. Gripping or being unwilling to relax the reins. So that's just defending. You don't want to let go because things are going to fall apart. So we have to let go, and then we've got to teach the horse how to do it better. Pretending you know more than you do. This is never going to get you anywhere. So we're all learning. We are all learning every single day. I mean, with horses, we are all learning every day. And the second I think that I've got it, of course, a situation is going to come up where I need to open myself up and be more curious and think of a different way to solve that. So we all know as trainers how hard riding is and how much work it takes and how many skills it takes. And so when you ask us questions or feel like you need a little more help with something, or we need to back up and we need to make an exercise a little bit easier, we do not think that you are a bad rider. It's actually, asking questions is delightful for us. We love that because there's always another level. You're peeling off these all of this onion skins, right? So when you think you know everything, you never really get to the depth of it. So don't be careful about that. It's not necessary. A lot of people do it, and then you feel like, I've got to, I have to put on those pretenses too. But the second I started valuing learning over knowing, my whole life changed, because it's so fun to be the one that can ask questions. Of course, I have to answer questions too for you guys. But if I don't know something, I'm really happy to say, hey, you know what? I actually don't know the answer to that. Let's go find out. Let's find somebody who does know that. And isn't that fun? And I think inquiry is always fun. So, and the better the questions, the more fun it is. So when you're not opening yourself up to learning, then you really are going to be defensive. You're going to think that people think you're stupid. You're going to think that people are judging you. And the second you value learning more than knowing, there is no judgment over it. It doesn't matter. You can judge me as much as you want. I don't value having to know everything anymore. Okay. Defensive is blaming your horse. We all know that. or blaming anything else. You know, we can't blame the guy that slammed the porta-john door, or, you know, whatever. We always have to try to step and put our best foot forward, feel responsible for what we're doing, and in that, learning our lessons. The second we start blaming other people or something else, then we're just avoiding that lesson, right? Things happen. That's not to say that we can control everything. We certainly cannot. But I have to say that I have learned a lot from situations that I could not control and that I didn't always handle in the moment perfectly. But then I had that experience and I said, okay, when this or something close to this happens again, I am going to handle it differently. Instead of saying, okay, well, that was that person's fault, or that guy wrecked my ride, or this happened, then once you say that, once you start blaming somebody else for something that happened to you, or a bad score or whatever, you're not going to change how you approach that situation next time. So be careful of that. It's not to say that things couldn't have gone better if that didn't happen. And we, you know, I get that part. But I also think that the learning stops when we don't allow ourselves to say, I could have actually responded better if I'd had more experience, if I had been more relaxed, if I had been more aware, I could have responded differently. So that, you know, that doesn't mean you have to be bashing yourself up either, and you know, holding yourself in jail because you made a mistake. That's not what I'm saying. But we just, you know, we want to learn from those experiences. Life happens, unfortunately. Sometimes things can happen and we don't respond exactly perfectly, and we can make mistakes, but we just want to learn. We really want to help ourselves, forgive ourselves for the mistakes, and in doing that, learn the lesson and try to come with that experience to the next the next thing that we, next horse show, or the next lesson, or the next clinic, or the next spook, or whatever it might be that we want to handle better. So does anybody have a defending one that they want to talk about before we hang up tonight? Well, I'm gonna say that that's awesome comment, Meg. And I have to say that probably the only way that I can even write them down is because I've been guilty of every one of them too. So that's awesome, Meg. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, well, Crystal, I think that's it's such a good point, is when we end up overdoing what we think we're not doing well enough. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, right? Where you have a weak link, and because you have that weak link, then you overuse it and cause yourself, other problems, rather than just, neutralizing and then starting from a little bit of a relaxed space. So I have the riding, defending, and positive aids, which I can either just email to you guys, or we can actually go over all of that next week if you want. So think about it and then let me know which way. Otherwise, we're moving on, I think, to the rain aids next week. But I just thought, I don't know, some of the things that have been going on in our riding life, I thought this would be a good thing to cover again. So anyway, I held you guys a lot later than usual. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us, Lissa. I'm so glad you could be here. And we'll see you guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you for coming. I love to see everybody. Have a great week, okay? Yes. Good night. And next time you have to type stuff in there, Miss Payton. Have a great night. Bye.